What's going on, everybody? J-How here, and in this video we're going to cover the new look Barbarian, cover some of the new items, and then take a look at what Kanai's cube is doing for the Barbarian in patch 2.3. Things are looking really good, and greater rift numbers are going through the roof. Let's take a look at the items and see what's pushing the Barbarian to the next level. So first, let's take a look at some of the new items. Then I'm going to show you how they work in a build that right now is just doing massive damage. Now, a couple of the new items are the shoulders. Fury of the Ancients, which says Call of the Ancients gains the effect of the Ancients' Fury rune. Right now, if you're using the Call of the Ancients, most of the time, it's because you need Fury and you're using Ancients' Fury. The problem with that is that there's another rune which reduces damage because it's going to split the damage between you and the Ancients, but you're not able to use that because you need Fury so badly. This seems to address that issue. However, that's not going to go into the build that we're about to go over. One of the other new items is the Bracers of Destruction. This says Seismic Slam deals anywhere between 300 to 400% increased damage to the first two enemies it hits. So this is good for single target damage, which is the bane of the Barbarian's existence. They address that with the Rift Guardian and its health, but you still need to find ways to do single target damage. Moving on to the prize of patch 2.3 is the Bracers of the First Men. This says when Hammer of the Ancient hits an enemy, gain anywhere between 75 to 100% increased attack speed for 3 seconds. Now, this is huge because when you first think about it, you're like, all right, I'm going to use Hammer of the Ancients over and over. No, the best way to use this is with the Whirlwind build based around the Bolkathos weapons and the Wrath of the Waste set. The reason being is that there are breakpoints for Whirlwind ticks and your Dust Devil tornadoes, which proc off of the 6-piece bonus here. Those are going to be where most of your damage comes from. Now, the top breakpoint is 3.33 attacks per second, which means that it's going to tick at its maximum capabilities. Now, there's a couple of really neat things you can do with this. If you had a roll or nowhere near a perfect roll on the increased attack speed, you can easily go and put this in your Kanai's cube for a passive. It automatically grants 100%. So if you rolled somewhere in the 75 to 80% range, you're probably going to need to use this as a passive at Kanai's cube. Now that would allow you to get the 100% increased attack speed and then run something like Steady Strikers, which increases your attack speed, your crit hit chance, your strength, and then ultimately you have the physical skill ability. Now, as you can see, 1.69 times 97% increased attack speed puts me a shade under 3.33 attacks per second, which means that for certain builds, or if you're trying to hit certain breakpoints by utilizing certain pieces of gear, you could run with Gogok of Swiftness. This is going to allow you to gain a few stacks of attack speed, as well as cooldown reduction, which can benefit your Wrath of the Berserker, to be able to hit that breakpoint and continue to do maximum damage. Those Dust Devil runes are going to be hitting very quickly and for very large amounts of damage. Now there's a few other tricks, but this is the PTR and it's very early on. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but once patch 2.3 hits, I'll have several builds lined up, as well as a more refined version of this build. If you're not subscribed already and you're going to look for more future builds once patch 2.3 hits, be sure and subscribe. But let's take a look at some of the other stuff that is working for the Barbarian. For the skills, using Hammer of the Ancients in conjunction with the Bracers, or at least the Bracers passive, there's a host of ways you can go with. Now, if you're running something like Bane of the Trapped, or you just like chilling enemies so they can't chase you and kill you, each hit creates a tremor at the point of impact for 2 seconds that chills enemies by 80%. This is good because the Bane of the Trapped is already going to have the aura around you, but having this in place also works. Rolling Thunder is nice to have because if you're stopping every so often to proc this, to be able to proc your Bracers every 3 seconds, then this is good because you're going to do a larger amount of area damage. So one might be good for the Rift Guardian and one might be good for just general uses on your way up to the Rift Guardian. Everything else should look pretty standard. Whirlwind with Blood Funnel is going to make use out of critical hits restoring 1% of your maximum life. One new skill that I've been using is Overpower with Killing Spree, which says your critical hit chance is increased by 8% for 5 seconds. Your Overpower is going to come around on a very fast cooldown because you'll see in the yellow text, critical hits have a chance to reduce the cooldown of Overpower by 1 second. So getting your critical hit chance up, especially with Battle Rage, is going to allow you to have effectively 8% plus 3%, which means an increase of 11% crit hit chance, which goes right back to your Blood Funnel rune in Whirlwind, which says your critical hits restore 1% of your maximum life. It's just really good synergy between these 3 skills. As with every build, you have to do a lot of damage if you're going to get through high greater rifts. Wrath of the Berserker is no exception. This allows you to gain 50% increased damage. Warcry with Impunity, because this is going to help your toughness greatly to be able to stay alive in those high greater rifts. Looking at your passives, Rampage is now viable for end-game builds because you're not going to be spending more than half of your time on the Rift Guardian boss anymore. They've addressed that, so they're putting more value on the content and the monsters leading up to the Rift Guardian. So being able to clear those even faster with something like Rampage is important. Maintaining your Fury is also important, so having Weapons Master with your BK weapons is extremely important to use. Also Ruthless, this is good when you get to those moments when you're at the Rift Guardian, because they do still have plenty of health, so dealing extra damage when they get below 30% health is important. Nerves of Steel is always important now that they've changed this in 2.2 and moving forward to have that second life for the Barbarian. A couple things to note for the gear is that now with the passives going from Kanai's Cube, you can now essentially run with something like Convention of Elements, which allows you to get maximum damage, as well as running a Stone of Jordan. If you're running solo, you want your passive to be a Unity. Now, if you don't have the Unity, that's okay, but you are going to need it in some form or fashion, whether it's on your ring or whether it's going to be on the Kanai's passive. Other Kanai's passives that are looking really good is the ability to finally use the Hexing Pants. Now, the best part about Hexing Pants is if you do find that you don't have issues with Fury once you're using Hexing Pants, and you can put that on there, you're going to do extra damage and the extra generation of Fury, you can possibly go with something other than Weapons Master here. So balancing that out and finding what you're able to do is important. Being able to throw the Unity in there is also important. In group play, you might opt to go with something different, and once you start unlocking stuff, you can find what those are. Preferably, you're going to have an amulet that has some type of damage mitigation already. Amara's Kaleidoscope works really great. Now, ideally, you'd have physical damage, crit hit chance, crit hit damage, and that socket. However, it is tough to get one of those, so get those whenever you can. The ability to run the Furnace now also increases our damage against elites by a guaranteed 50% when you're using it through Kanai's Cube. So you can take a look at several options that you can now run with the Barbarian to be able to push those greater rift numbers higher and higher. Everything else is pretty standard in running the Wrath of the Waste 6-piece, and then running both BK weapons and hopefully having them ancient. Now, again, it's important to note that sometimes it's going to be worth it to roll increased attack speed. As I said, I am just under the breakpoint that I need with that 97% increased attack speed, so I'll likely be using a Gogok as well as some other key choices. Looking at legendary gems, the Bane of the Trapped and the Taeguk are still very important. Your third gem can be the Gogok if you need to hit that increased attack speed bonus. The Pain Enhancer is also a really good option because that's going to be pushing out a ton of damage. Or if you find that you're having trouble with survivability, the Esoteric Alteration is also very important to use. So making use of your passives from Kanai's Cube, whether it be with the Hexing Pants, whether it be with the Bracers of the First Men, are all going to be noteworthy things. Understanding what those breakpoints are, and then seeing if you have to use something like Steady Strikers or Lakuni Prowlers to get that extra increased attack speed, or use the Gogok of Swiftness, takes a little bit of calculations, but once you have it down, and let's say if you use the 100%, that's a pretty easy calculation to make. The future for the Whirlwind Barbarian still looks very bright and is going to maintain the test of time. People were often wondering if it's going to be a one-hit wonder for Season 3 only. It looks like the Whirlwind Barbarian is being taken to the next level. You're not going to miss out on all that spinning and winning. As previously mentioned, this is the PTR and things are very easily subject to change. Be sure and check back on the channel, and if you haven't subscribed already, be sure and do that because I'll be bringing you updates for all classes leading up to patch 2.3, as well as several of the best builds that you can use once patch 2.3 hits. I'll be taking a look at several Kanai's Cube combinations, as well as other gear combinations and some of the new items, so be on the lookout for those. So if you like the build or you like the video and you want to hit that like button below, that is always appreciated. If you're looking for more Diablo 3 content and other gaming content, be sure and subscribe as well. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. Till next time, happy hunting. See you again.